"Did you really think Earth would just let that go?" growled Admiral Corrin, his voice echoing through the chamber as he faced the assembled members of the Galactic Council. They sat there, a blend of shocked faces, shimmering scales, and twitching antennae, each dumbfounded by Earth's sudden, brutal retaliation. The Council had underestimated Earth, that much was clear. For decades, the galaxy's great powers, led by the esteemed Council seated high above the fray in their sprawling towers, had relegated Earth to a minor player in galactic affairs. Its unique aggressive tendencies and penchant for innovation were simply brushed off as quirks of an eccentric species from a quiet corner of the galaxy. But as it turned out, humans had a long memory and a willingness to hold a grudge longer than any other species. The issue had started with a seemingly innocuous trade dispute, one that the Council initially thought Earth would ignore or handle diplomatically. They were wrong. Earth had played along for a while, taking the subtle insults, the restrictions, the demeaning bargains. But then came the blockade. The Council had cut off Earth's most vital space lanes, practically strangling its trade network under the guise of maintaining order and protecting galactic stability. The humans were left with nothing but the silent threat that if they overstepped, harsher penalties would follow. For any other species, that would have been the end of it. But humans, they had plans. It was just a matter of time, wasn't it? Murmured High Arbiter Rishal, his mottled green skin paling as the gravity of the situation settled over him. They weren't going to forget, especially after the embargo. As Corrin spoke, the monitors in the chamber flickered to life, displaying images captured by unmanned survey probes and intelligence satellites stationed near Earth's territories. What the Council members saw on those screens made even the most hardened warriors shift uncomfortably in their seats. On the first monitor was an array of colossal warships, their exteriors coated in sleek black armor that seemed to drink in the light. Each ship was adorned with Earth's emblem, a simple blue sphere dotted with green and white, and pulsed with the glow of high-powered energy shields. Admiral Corrin, arms crossed over his chest, watched as the Council members murmured among themselves. Some tried to mask their horror, while others openly gawked. Earth's retaliation had been calculated and, above all, precise. The humans hadn't just retaliated in kind, they had mastered the art of guerrilla space warfare, hijacking key supply routes and hitting every choke point that fed the Council's territories. "Explain," demanded a counselor, his orange eyes narrowing at Corrin. He was a Carrion, one of the races that had openly mocked Earth's technological advancements as crude and unsophisticated. "How did they manage this without us noticing? Where did they get the resources for those weapons?" "Simple," Corrin replied, a half-smirk tugging at his mouth. "They adapted. Turns out if you back a human into a corner, they don't surrender. They innovate." He paused, relishing the unease in the counselor's eyes. "You might not have noticed the signs, but Earth never stopped building. They just got a lot better at hiding it. The humans had used their isolation to perfect their technologies. They developed stealth engines capable of evading the best Council tracking equipment, hacked the Council's own surveillance systems, and mined every unclaimed asteroid belt within their reach. With each move, they inched closer to a hidden objective, all under the Council's nose. And now they were ready to show what they had accomplished. The monitors switched to another feed. This one showed a massive structure orbiting just outside Earth's solar system, a colossal orbital platform bristling with weaponry. Alongside it, smaller vessels darted around, each outfitted with experimental energy cannons and hull designs the Council had never seen before. It was a fortress, an undeniable show of force from a species that had grown tired of taking orders. Admiral Corrin leaned forward, his eyes scanning the Council chamber. "Earth's industries went dark after the embargo, didn't they? Production reports, mining outputs, everything plummeted. You assumed they'd collapsed." He shook his head. "They didn't collapse, they just went underground, built their bases in asteroid belts, set up facilities on moons, and redirected every ounce of their resources to this project. While you celebrated your control, Earth was transforming. Its economy, its society, its military." There was a collective inhale among the Council members as the realization sank in. The humans hadn't merely survived, they had evolved. The isolation had turned them into something the Council had never anticipated. A formidable, technologically advanced power with a taste for vengeance. "And they've issued a statement," Corrin added, a glint of satisfaction in his eye. The monitors now displayed a single line of text, a message that had been intercepted from an encrypted human transmission. It read, "If you seek peace, leave us to it. Interfere again, and we'll ensure the galaxy remembers why you don't cross Earth." High Arbiter Rashel cleared his throat, his voice strained. "They're threatening us?" "No," Corrin said, almost amused. "They're warning you. "There's a difference." For a moment silence fell over the chamber as the Council's leaders absorbed the magnitude of Earth's retaliation. They were no longer dealing with a minor power, a small planet of peculiar bipeds. Earth had grown into something else entirely. A threat the Council could no longer ignore, yet could hardly afford to confront directly. In their arrogance, the Council had dismissed Earth's adaptability as a minor advantage at best, a quirk at worst. But now, as they watched the human ships and defenses displayed in stark detail, they were forced to reckon with the consequences of their actions. They had awoken a species that refused to be dominated, that had transformed every insult and blockade into fuel for something far more menacing. "What are we to do?" whispered one of the counselors, his gaze fixed on the screens. "We could negotiate, perhaps." His voice trailed off, uncertain. But Corrin's smile held no sympathy. He'd spent years stationed on Earth's outskirts, observing their world, learning their ways. He knew better than most what humans were capable of when provoked. Negotiation wasn't just a matter of signing agreements anymore. It was a question of whether the Council would admit its own vulnerability. "Negotiating with Earth now," he said quietly, "means treating them as equals, something I doubt this Council is ready to do." The counselors shifted uncomfortably, realizing the weight of Corrin's words. The galaxy was built on a hierarchy, a structure where each race had its place, its limitations. Treating Earth as an equal would disrupt that delicate balance, spark unease among allies, and potentially embolden other lesser-ranked planets to seek similar treatment. Still, the Council knew it had few options. The galaxy was vast, but its resources were finite, its trade routes precious. The humans, in their clever isolation, had mastered precisely the places and systems the Council relied on most. The room grew colder as the counselors sat, faced with a truth they had long refused to see. Earth, the tiny blue planet they once viewed as a galactic curiosity, now stood at the edge of its greatest power play. The very trade networks that had been used to strangle Earth had now become potential chokeholds for the Council itself, courtesy of humanity's retaliation. Counselor Threx, a being of coiled scales and bladed arms, hissed in irritation. "So they've amassed ships and guns, Corrin, but surely you aren't suggesting we bow to this display. Humans are only so strong as the tools they build. Their minds are sharp, but physically they're weak." Admiral Corrin shook his head, unimpressed by Threx's arrogance. "Underestimating humans because they lack physical strength is exactly why they're standing against us now. Every weapon they've built, every trick they've learned, came from studying species stronger than them, species that underestimated their creativity and resilience." He leaned forward, letting his voice drop to a low growl. "They've turned that weakness into an advantage. You'd be wise to remember that." One of the newer counselors, a quiet mind with translucent skin that shimmered under the chamber lights, cleared his throat. "Our fleets outnumber theirs 20-1. Why not simply overpower them, cut off their system entirely, block every jump gate in the sector? Earth can't fight the entire galaxy after all." Corrin allowed himself a grim chuckle. "That's the thing. Earth's been watching us for years, studying our protocols, our combat methods, even our communications. They've learned enough about us to know our weaknesses." He gestured to the images on the monitors. "Those ships of theirs aren't just defensive. They're designed to dismantle our formations, energy disruptors, drone swarms, something they call EMP shock rounds. They've engineered every part of their fleet specifically to exploit our vulnerabilities, and with their stealth tech, they could hit us before we even know they're there." Counselor Threx coiled, his scales bristling in disbelief. "They've no right. Who gave them permission to meddle with technology beyond their rank?" Corrin's gaze darkened. "Permission? You think they waited for permission?" He turned to the other counselors, scanning their uneasy faces. "Humans didn't wait for approval. They just did. That's why you're all frightened right now. Either you admit it or not. Earth doesn't follow rules. If they feel they're unjust, they rewrite them." The tension in the room thickened, ChatGPT said. The weight of that realization seeping into the bones of every counselor present. Earth had moved beyond diplomacy, beyond the confines of their negotiated agreements. They had evolved into something else, something far more dangerous. And now the Council would have to decide: confront this newfound power or find a way to negotiate with a species that no longer viewed them as rulers. The path forward was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth had just made its mark on the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again.